Hiya. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cairngorm 3 tent. It's a hiking tent that's on a large size and frankly luxurious for one person. I used it for a 7-month cycle ride tour around the coast of Britain last year for charity called Coast and Castle Cycle for Ducks and Drakes Cancer Trust. And there is a page on Facebook if you want to look it up. I've posted things on there since I finished it, while I've been catching up with castles that I didn't manage to get to on the trip. But anyway, on to the tent. I keep the fly sheet here in a waterproof bag because it's quite often wet when you pack up. Almost always, in fact. The fly sheet itself, as you will see, is not completely red anymore because it's been used a lot, 7 months continuously last year, but didn't have a drop of water in, and I've cleaned and reproofed it since anyway, and it's been doing sterling service since too. If it's a bit windy, which it isn't really today, but I'll just put some pegs in the corners just roughly to ensure it doesn't blow anywhere. There's a bit of a gust. You can never put them in the right places because of tensioning later on. That. Oh, and a word about pegs. These are the pegs it comes with. I'm not a great fan of these. They bend. As you can see, I've never used them. They bend and they can also pull through the soil sideways if the wind really gets up. I've always used these aluminium ones, the original ones from the North Face tent I got, which don't have the hole in the top, which are these. Yeah, North Face. And that's been bashed around and used for 20 years. Still going strong. Alley V-shaped, done very well. Looks small but are very good. Now, I often put in a bigger one to help hook them out when I'm leaving somewhere, and also spares, just in case. I've never needed any spares actually, but it's always good to have some. That. A good myrrh, as I call it, a hammer. And the next thing is a pole. The good old poles. Which seem exceedingly long for what is not a huge tent. It's a 3-manner, but these poles seem to go on forever. But they're metal, and therefore they won't split like silly fiberglass ones. They always seem far too long, but because they go in hoops, they're strong and good. Right. That's always a bit of a problem in a confined space, but one of them. Here's the other big one. It's just 3 poles. In many ways, it's a similar design to the Tadpole 23, the 2-man tent I used to use 20 years ago. Good solid design, which works well. Feed this one. Being a fly first erecting tent is very useful on the rain. In rain when it's never happened before. It's catching on the roses behind me because I don't usually camp right next to things for obvious reasons. Campsites tend to have a lot more room. As soon as it's poking out, you can shove it all the way through. And the middle one. Which is a bit shorter. And as you'll notice, it's got a bit of tape there. And actually has got 2 segments of the repair kit tube over the top of the central bit here, because the central bit is only that long, same length as this, but it's deliberately kinked a bit, not quite sure why, but it is, for the very top. But that bit did start cracking after a while, and I was a bit dubious of it, so I repaired it before it broke, and it's been fine since. Maybe a slight weakness, I don't know if it's just this tent or all these tents, but it's never been a problem. Easily sorted. Then you simply, and they usually look 2 end ones down here first. That one. That one I usually use the outside holes. And then this is the one that raises it up off the floor. Running it works in terms of going through the sleeve as you're raising it up like that, and then it just goes ding, and then you simply put the two side ones in there. Here. And there you see the kink in the very middle top. It will be in the very middle when it's adjusted and tensioned. Pull on this one to tension that one up. Just left key there. This one also has a tag. Stretch and tension it as well. And it suddenly becomes very rigid, even before any of the guide rows are done. It's really good. You've got clips here, all round. Et voila. Couple more. And then the rest. Two there. Two there. Two there. Three at the end here. Two there. Two there. And give the final tension on the corners because it's not going to move now. So I always do the corners first to make sure it's stretched tension correctly. Right place. Now all the guide ropes at the moment, or most of them, are on the shortest they can be, simply because where I was camping last time. Now it's like rock. Really intense. It's got two vents, one at each end. A little bit of Velcro to keep it there. That's the fly done. One of two doors. Having two doors is very useful, depending on which way it's raining. It's got three straps, as you can see, to keep it the right shape. It's good. Now, it doesn't come with a footprint. And the stuff I read about things, and I felt I needed a footprint anyway, but I read about someone using screw-fix damp-proof membrane, which is what this is. Now this did the entire 7 months of my trip last year around the coast of Britain, and is still going, despite having a really huge battering and even being forced to pitch my tent on a stony hard standing ones. Now you will notice that there's several, quite a few bits of Gorilla Tape plugging some holes, but even so it's still going strong. The Gorilla Tape's really good. I will have to replace it eventually, but it's really useful because however waterproof the base of the inner is, and it is very waterproof, it will still get muddy. And being muddy, it won't dry out very quickly. Not drying out very quickly means it will go mouldy. Going mouldy means it will break down. So it's nonsensical. You've got to have a footprint. And this would be kept elsewhere on the bike, if you've got a trailer, if you've got one like I had, or in a car in a separate bag, so you don't have to keep cleaning it. It's probably well, muddy and even still wet from the last time. It doesn't bother it. That will be the bottom of the inner. You just don't want it. So, all we have to do is figure out, what I've got to do is figure out which end is the smaller end. And we'll do that end. So there we go. The size of the footprint is fairly critical, because too small and you get the inner on the floor and get it muddy. Too big, you get water driving under the tent and forming puddles under the inner. Now that's not going to be too bad, because the inner is waterproof, very waterproof, but it's still going to make it wet, and the more you can keep things dry when camping, the better. The inner I keep in the original bag. And it's simply Now I did find, after a while, that this hook seems to have been put slightly in the wrong place, more this way than that one, and hooking it on the normal place meant the inner was too close and sometimes touched the outer. However, this is easy to get around. Just put an extra bit of stretchy cord on there, move it round, and plenty of gap. Now, little plastic hooks at each corner, which you hook on to hold it in place. I found that if I did these top hoops first, it was putting more of a strain on the inner and caused small holes to form where these joined the inner. But since I started doing the side ones first and those last, they've never got any worse. So I advise doing the lower ones first. Now, you'll notice it has a bit here. It used to have this filling this porch. Now I don't like a porch with this all over it. I prefer a porch with grass in it. It doesn't make sense to me why you would want to put your wet or muddy or anything else that sits outside, like a rubbish bag or something like that, on this, because it's just going to make more wet. I keep it because sometimes it's occasionally useful to use a small area, and I left a little bit on here in case I want to put one or two things on there, but generally I want grass in my porch. And when I don't want that, I simply fold it under. Two zips for the door. You can have it wherever you like. And have a zip door. Now the interior is black. It just looks red because of the canvas and the sun coming through. But this is what the floor looks like before you put the two hooks at the other end in, which I'll do now. Yeah, much better. Sometimes you get a diagonal line one way or the other because it's not easy to put the tent up exactly square, but that's pretty good. Now there are proper tiebacks for the doors, but I find it much easier just to stuff the door through there and it kind of stays there. But if you really want to, you can roll up the door. Stays there, so that floats you boat. And there we are. It's a good old tent. It's served me well. It suffers from a bit of condensation some mornings, depending on the weather, but then no more than any other tent I've had. I found it overall very good. It's very good in wind, especially if it's pitched. Wind coming from that direction, so back into the wind. It's very sturdy. The fact it has two doors is very useful with wind direction and rain and so on, or just convenience. The good number of pitch points and guy ropes and pegs is good and helps the stability. Size is good for sitting in. Good headroom. You can just about stand up bent double, which I couldn't do in my previous tent. So I think that's about it. It seems to be very long-lived, despite the thrashing I gave it. It's had an awful lot of UV, as the pink colour demonstrates. Like I say, I have cleaned and reproofed it, even though it wasn't leaking at all, because after 7 months use I thought it was deserving of that. And it's been very good for me. Size wise, if you measure with guy ropes, it's about 3 by 5 metres, and without guys it's about 3.6 by 1.5 metres, so very good. And weight wise, all in, it's about 4.4 kg, but it's been a very good tent for me, and it still is, in fact. And we'll see many an adventure in the future, I expect. Now taking down, which there are a few points to remember with this too. Once you've got all your stuff out, zip it shut. Now you can leave the inner attached and dismantle the tent, fold it up with the inner still attached. This means a faster pitching next time, but if it's wet at all with any condensation or anything like that, you're going to get all the inner all wet and that's not going to be very good. So I pretty much always, I think I did that once on the entire trip last year, but I pretty much always take it out. So take the top ones off first to relieve the strain on them first, and then you just work your way down, reverse of undo the little hooks, and remember to undo the little hooks at the back too. Right, that's the inner taken down. Now, the way I take this tent down is not quite the reverse of putting it up, because if it was, I'd take the footprint out now. The reason I'm not is if it's wet or muddy, this is an excellent base to roll the fly up on. Yes, this won't have one, but that generally doesn't seem to matter very much because it's the rolling, which happens mostly at that end, that would cause any mud or whatever's filth on the ground that you don't want on the tent. Even just condensation and dew. So I'm going to leave that there while I whip out all the pegs. I'm going to leave the 4 corners for the time being. There are 17 pegs. There. Now whip the corners out. And with any luck, a gust of wind won't take it off while you're doing this. That never has yet. Right. Clip's undone. Do the door up. Undo tension. Slip off. Slip off. Undo tension. Slip off. Undo tension. Now, little pole. Undo. And this one out, and it will fall onto the footprint rather than in the mud or dew. I'm going to take the rest of them out. There's the little holes. Now they always say you should push holes out, not pull them. Right, now there's a trick to getting the poles out quickly. It doesn't apply so much to the one across, the smaller one, because if you've done the preventative repair to the ridge bit, you've got to get that out first. But once you've done that, you can, they say don't pull it, but you can pull it providing you bend it, because bending it keeps all the joints together, and you just whip it out. Once the centre one's out, can pull the other ones out, providing again you bend them. And even if the sleeve is wet, which you'll try and grab hold of it, they'll still come out nice and quick and won't separate. Just got to bend it. Keeps the joints together. Bingo. And now we've got the tent mostly on the footprint. And you can hold it up. And you can kneel on footprint as well, rather than in the mud. I mean, it's a no-brainer, it really is. You can start rolling from this end and drag it onto the footprint. Make this end a bit neater. Doesn't have to be wildly special. And bingo. The footprint is 223 centimetres long, 162 centimetres at the wide end, and 132 centimetres at the narrow end. And you'll have a footprint that will save you an awful lot of trouble. I didn't even attempt to try it without it. And there you go. Thanks very much for watching.